Dancing with Fear, the eternal hunger of Pennywise. In the sleepy town of Derry, Maine, rain fell in heavy sheets, washing autumn leaves down storm drains that seemed to swallow more than just rainwater. 7-year-old Danny Morgan stood transfixed at his bedroom window, watching water cascade into the drain at the curb. A flash of color caught his eye, something bright against the gray day. A balloon, red as arterial blood, bobbing against the current. Then a face appeared in the drain, white as bone with fiery tufts of hair and a smile that stretched too wide across unnaturally crimped features. "Hello, Danny," the face called, voice lilting with an almost musical quality. "Would you like a balloon? They float. They all float down here." Danny should have been afraid. Any sensible child would be. But curiosity, that fatal flaw of youth, drew him closer to the window. "Who are you?" he whispered. The smile widened impossibly further, revealing rows of needle-like teeth. "I'm Pennywise, the dancing clown, and you're Danny, the boy who's afraid of dogs ever since the Miller's Rottweiler chased you last summer." Danny froze. How could the clown know about that? "I know all about you, Danny. I know your fears. I can smell them." The balloon drifted upward, seemingly against the pull of rain, stopping outside Danny's second-story window. Reflected in its shiny surface was not Danny's face, but the snarling muzzle of a Rottweiler, saliva dripping from exposed fangs. Danny screamed and stumbled back. The balloon pressed against the glass, deforming like a liquid rather than rubber, the dog's face growing larger within it. "Don't you want to play, Danny? Don't you want to float?" 30 miles away, Dr. Sarah Chen reviewed her notes on collective trauma and mass hysteria. Derry's history fascinated her. A town with a child disappearance rate 6 times the national average, occurring in clusters every 27 years. "It's back," her newest patient had whispered yesterday. Mike Hanlon, the town librarian, had sought her out specifically, his eyes haunted by decades-old terror. It never really left. Sarah had dismissed it as paranoia until she'd begun digging through archives, photographs spanning over a century, showing the same figure lurking in the background of tragedies. A clown with ancient eyes, present at every catastrophe that had befallen Derry. Her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "They all float down here, Dr. Chen. Come see." Attached was a photo of her childhood bedroom, exactly as it had been 20 years ago, right down to the teddy bear with the missing eye. The same room where her little brother had vanished without a trace. A room that no longer existed in a house that had burned down years ago. Sarah's hands trembled as she enlarged the image. In the corner lurked a tall, gaunt figure, its face painted white, eyes gleaming yellow in the darkness. Pennywise sated himself on Danny's fear, savoring the rush of cortisol and adrenaline that sweetened the child's essence. Fear was the seasoning that made the meat tender, the spice that brought out the flavor of innocence. It had been this way for millennia. The entity that wore Pennywise's skin was ancient beyond human comprehension, a being from between spaces that had fallen to Earth eons ago. Humans called it, but even that was a simplification of something vast and unfathomable. It fed on fear because fear was honest. Fear stripped away pretense and revealed the true self. It had learned early that children tasted better. Their fears were purer, their imaginations more vivid. Adults clouded their terrors with rationality, diluting the flavor. And so every 27 years, it awakened to feast, wearing whatever skin would most effectively harvest terror. The clown had proven particularly useful, the painted smile and exaggerated features straddling the uncanny valley between comforting and disturbing. It remembered when clowns first appeared in human culture, jesters dancing on the edge of propriety, saying the unsayable through humor. The perfect mask for a predator, disarming, unexpected, and fundamentally wrong. The Losers Club, they called themselves. 7 outcasts bound by trauma and the shared knowledge of what lurked beneath Derry. They had faced it once as children, and again as adults, each confrontation leaving them scarred but strengthened. Yet even now, decades later, Beverly Marsh still woke screaming from dreams of dripping blood and floating children. Bill Denbrough still stuttered when rain pounded the pavement. Eddie Kasprak still reached for an inhaler that wasn't there whenever panic tightened his chest. Because Pennywise never truly died, it lived in their nightmares, in their reflexive flinches at the sight of clowns, in the inexplicable dread they felt near storm drains. "We killed it," Richie Tozier insisted during their monthly video call. "We crushed its heart." "Did we?" Mike asked quietly. "Or did we just force it to adapt, to evolve?" The call fell silent as each considered the implications. The creature they knew as Pennywise had existed since the dawn of human consciousness, feeding on fear and flesh alike. What if their actions had merely forced it to find more subtle ways to feed? In the basement of an abandoned house on Neibolt Street, something stirred in the darkness. A chitinous leg scraped against concrete. Yellow eyes opened, 3 pairs blinking in unison. It was hungry again. It had learned from past failures. The clown form had become too recognizable, too associated with its true nature. So it adapted, fragmenting into smaller pieces, spreading throughout Derry like a fungal network. It no longer needed to be a singular predator. Now it was the whisper that made you check under your bed, the shadow that seemed to move in your peripheral vision, the inexplicable dread that woke you at 3 a.m. It fed on anxiety, depression, paranoia, the slow-burning fears of modern life that seeped through Derry like groundwater. And sometimes, just for nostalgic fun, it still became the dancing clown. For certain children, the ones who hadn't been warned, who still found innocence in painted faces and balloon animals, Pennywise would appear, offering floating red balloons and promises of eternal fun. Because fear was eternal, fear was primal. As long as humans feared the unknown, the thing that called itself Pennywise would never truly starve. And in Derry, where the veil between worlds had worn thin centuries ago, it would always find a way back. Not every 27 years, but every moment fear bloomed in a human heart. It waited, it watched, it hungered. And somewhere in Derry, a child looked down a storm drain and saw a friendly face with feral eyes, offering a floating red balloon and the terrible promise, "You'll float too."